a university student working part-time, died in the factory dormitory. The factory owner was very angry. They found the deceased's parents and cursed them as unlucky, and said their son died in the factory dormitory, not classified as a work-related injury, but out of humanitarianism. They gave them a few thousand yuan as compensation. The deceased's parents are both deaf and mute. They are very poor. That's why the factory owner acted so arrogantly. The boss hired an estate cleaner to tidy up the deceased's belongings. Jack and his father came to the dormitory and sorted out all the students' belongings. During this process, Jack discovered that the deceased was not as the factory claimed. It turns out he was injured while working. The boss asked him to endure it and seek treatment after work, but by the time he finished work, all the clinics were closed. He hesitated to go to a big hospital because the expenses there are too high. He needed to save money for his tuition, so he returned to the dormitory, planning to go to the clinic the next morning. He even asked the boss for leave, but his request was not approved. Unexpectedly, his wound became infected, and he died in the dormitory in the middle of the night. Jack and his father handed over the belongings to the deceased's mother. She picked up her phone and read the conversation between her son and the boss. Only then did she know the cause of her son's death. She looked at the boss, who was having a meal, and could only silently shed tears. Jack and his father were also having their meal there. They overheard the conversation between the boss and his subordinates. Luckily, they are both deaf and mute. Otherwise, if they knew the truth, they would definitely make a scene. Jack's father was extremely angry. He walked up to the group of people, grabbed the boss, and brought him in front of the deceased's mother. It turns out Jack's father also understands sign language. He told her to say whatever she wanted to say, and he would translate for her. She returned the few thousand yuan to the boss, and said that even if she died, she didn't want her son's life to be exchanged for money. The boss hung his head in shame. Jack saw a woman outside. He quietly followed her, scaring the woman, thinking he was a bad person. But Jack is actually an autistic person, with exceptional memory and computational abilities. He actually wanted the badge the woman had. He was misunderstood because he is not good at expressing himself. Finally, his father arrived and cleared up the misunderstanding. Jack hung the badge on the deceased's backpack. The badge had 4 characters. Can anyone understand what these 4 characters mean? Let me know in the comments. They had just resolved this service when an accident happened to Jack's father. He suddenly fell ill on the road. Before he died, he called his son. Jack sensed that something was wrong with his father, but with his autism, he gets like this when he panics. In the end, his father died in the ambulance. His neighbor, Xiao Mei, found him and told him about his father's passing. That day, a stranger came to Jack's house. He was Peter. An elderly dementia patient died alone in their home. Their son and daughter-in-law only discovered the mother's death a month later. Due to the strong odor in the house, the couple suspected that the mother had hidden money during her lifetime, so they hired an estate cleaner to tidy up the mother's belongings. Jack and Peter entered the house, and indeed, the smell inside was unbearable. When Peter saw the condition of the house, he even vomited. Looking at the photos on the wall, mostly of the son, he couldn't help but sigh. What difference does it make to have a son and daughter-in-law? If they are not filial in the end, won't they still end up lonely in old age? Jack sorted out all of the elderly person's belongings. He found many withdrawal receipts for 50,000 yuan, over 100 of them in total, and there was a phone number. He put the valuable items and those photos into a box and handed them over to the elderly person's son and daughter-in-law. They discovered the elderly person's bank book, but upon closer inspection, she had withdrawn all the money. What did she do with the money? Why did you bring this trash over here? The son actually considered all of it as trash and told them to throw it away because there was nothing valuable inside. But these are clearly the memories of the elderly person's lifetime. Jack didn't throw away these things, knowing that there must be something the elderly person wanted to say. They asked Jack if he found any cash. Jack told them he did. They followed Jack into the house, only to see Jack lifting a mat. The bedboard was covered in cash, but this cash was all mixed with dirt and grime. How could anyone put money here? This couple didn't even mind the filth. They shamelessly picked up the cash with their bare hands. Just by looking at Peter's expression, you could tell how disgusted he was. As it turns out, all this dirt and grime was left behind by the deceased. No wonder Peter had that expression. If they don't deal with this money, it definitely won't be usable. Jack told them he could handle it. They took the cash back with them. After being treated with a solution, they put it into a device for drying. Later, Jack found some writing on the cash. Jack went to the bank and presented the withdrawal receipts of the elderly person. From the bank staff, he learned that the elderly person used to come here every day to withdraw 50,000 yuan. After withdrawing the money, she would make a call using the bank's phone, but after connecting, she wouldn't say anything. The elderly person would repeat this every day. Jack remembered the number he found at the elderly person's house. He dialed it directly. I understand. What? Afterwards, Jack found the elderly person's son and told him about the repetitive action the elderly person did every day. It turns out that after withdrawing the money every day, she would make a call to her son. The elderly person withdrew cash a total of 123 times. So, what did she do with the money she withdrew? Jack brought the elderly person's son to a suit shop. The shop owner told them the elderly person would come here every day, saying that she wanted to custom order a suit worth 50,000 yuan for her son, and she would mention bringing her son along next time, but every time she came alone, and she would say the same thing every time. The shop owner knew that the elderly person had dementia, so they would always cooperate with her. Jack handed over the elderly person's belongings to her son, but the son was very angry. He threw those things and said, "Didn't I tell you to throw away this junk? I only wanted to get back the cash." Suddenly, he noticed a box. He picked it up and looked inside. It turned out to be a set of thermal underwear. It was the set he bought for his mother 30 years ago. It was the first salary he received in his life, and he bought this set of underwear for his mother. The elderly person would withdraw 50,000 yuan every day, just to buy a suit for her son like that. But this suit needed her son to come for measurements, because the elderly person lived alone. Her son found her dirty and wouldn't visit her once a month, combined with her elderly dementia. That's why she would repeat the same action every day. He cried, his heart torn apart, but the elderly person had already passed away. Now, what use is it to know how good she was to him?